everybody. Christina Stapke here of Christina Stapke RDN Virtual Nutrition Counseling. And I help my clients feel better with nutrition and daily habits to kind of get their body back into balance. So today I want to talk about the third step of my 7-step gut restoration protocol. And last week we talked about foundations. So that was step 2. And the week before that, I talked about a deep dive into your history. And so the third step is fun because it talks about identifying and addressing food triggers. So if we're working on foundations and let's say, someone's eating a general whole foods type diet most of the time, so things that are, living or growing in nature, those typically can be seen as whole foods. And they're just not feeling well, so maybe they have some digestive upset, so some bloating or gas or indigestion, or maybe some breakouts like acne or other skin issues like eczema, maybe brain fog, fatigue. These all can be signs of food sensitivities. And so I did want to talk about a really important way, and actually a couple different ways to kind of go about discovering your food sensitivities. So, and then also the downfalls of doing testing and who should do it, who shouldn't, who would benefit from it most, really. So the first way is kind of doing a trial and error type method. And this can be really effective if someone is reacting to a food right away. So generally how this looks is for anywhere from 3 to maybe 6 weeks, maybe a little bit longer in some cases, someone will eliminate some common allergens. Is one way. So common allergens are things like, wheat or gluten, eggs, dairy, soy, corn. Those are just a few of them, peanuts. And so they would eliminate these foods for a certain time, and then you'd reintroduce each food one at a time, separated from anywhere from ideally a week, which for some people it's like by the first or second week after not eating these certain foods, they kind of like throw their hands up and they're like, okay, I'm done. I have totally been there. By the way, I've done an elimination diet like that, and it's hard to really do a diligent reintroduction. The benefit of that is, again, if you have a quick reaction to a food, so if it's fairly immediate, like you eat a piece of bread after the 4 to 6 weeks and you have like really bad gas, or you break out the next day, or really bad brain fog, or something very obvious happens and you're kind of controlling for other things, as far as different changes in your life, that can be great. Okay, we've identified you may react to this food. However, oftentimes reactions can be kind of delayed. So in some cases, it can take over a week, maybe even 2 weeks, 3 weeks for your immune system to develop a response to a food. And so, you could see the issues with that, right? So if you reintroduce and then you don't feel the symptoms for another 3 weeks, it can be kind of tough to identify what was causing what. I will say, even if you find that you're reacting to a certain food, maybe with the exception of a couple different things that are typically kind of inflammatory to the body and the gut, we should always try and figure out why your body is reacting to those foods in the first place, because that's just giving us clues that, okay, your body might be a little bit out of balance and it just needs some support in certain areas. So that's the first method, is the trial and error method. This is low cost for the most part, takes a lot more patience, typically a lot more time. And then the other method is doing some food sensitivity testing. And so food sensitivity testing I found in practice to be very helpful and effective if we're using the right kind of test. So there's a lot of different tests out there these days where you can kind of just go online and do it yourself. And for some people, it can be helpful because they're getting some information about what might be causing their symptoms, or at least contributing to their symptoms. However, that should not be the end of the story. So you get the results back. Okay, let's say they found 20 different foods that you reacted to. And then some people, and I have clients come in and they've been off these foods for years, like 10, 12, 15, 20 plus years, and they're still off these foods. And so the issue with that is, first of all, we're not addressing the underlying cause of why they're sensitive to those things in the first place, but also their diet has become much more limited. So we want as diverse a diet as possible because that's really good for not only our digestive bacteria in our, mostly large intestine and colon, but also we get different kinds of nutrients from different foods. So we want that variety there. The other issue with doing that kind of testing is that it can miss a lot of sensitivities. So, especially if we're trying to tackle something like, an autoimmune condition like Hashimoto's or RA or MS, there's a host of different autoimmune conditions that can benefit from this. Is looking at kind of a more specific kind of test. So, and that's peptide level sensitivity testing. And so I always like to describe this to my clients as, think of a general food sensitivity test like looking at a whole protein. And when we think of a whole protein, we can think of it like a raspberry. So we have that whole raspberry, and the raspberry has a bunch of little different seeds in it. And so all those little different seeds are called peptides in this analogy. And so what the general food sensitivity test would look at is that whole raspberry. But what if that person is breaking down that raspberry into all the little different seeds, and those seeds or peptides are getting through into the system and triggering immune reaction? Those tests are not going to catch that. So we can actually do testing for all those little tiny peptides, which are like essentially the building blocks of protein, and we can identify, okay, are those triggering someone's immune system? So we can take them out for a short period of time, see how they respond, see how their immune system and their symptoms recover, and then add those back in after a certain period of time. Now, I do want to note, for anyone dealing with any kind of eating disorder, or if you're already really anxious about food, in general, doing food sensitivity testing is not really appropriate until you've kind of you feel like you have established a good relationship with food, and ideally are guided by a counselor and or dietitian with that. So yeah, just to summarize, you could do the trial and error method, or you could do food sensitivity testing. Now, I mentioned a couple times in there that it is important to always address the root causes. And so I'm actually going to talk about that next time on step 4 of my 7-step gut restoration protocol. So we're going to be talking about identifying and addressing basically bad bugs in your digestive tract, how we can do that, and kind of what to do with that information. If you're curious about whether you're reacting to certain foods or how to even go about this process, definitely, of course, I'm biased, but I would recommend getting support from a practitioner. If you want to chat with me, of course, I would love to chat with you and figure out what's going on. We'll have 45 minutes, 45 minutes to chat about what you're dealing with, kind of the support you're looking for. And then also, I can point you in the right direction and kind of see what the best next step might be. You can go to my website at ChristinaStapkeRDN.com. A link is posted in the description here. If you found this interesting, comment, share with someone that you feel like would benefit from this. Thanks so much for tuning in, and take care.